It makes you think. And once again, I mean, the legend of Manny Pacquiao, he is one of the few walking around living legends in our sport. So
Sure.
if anybody's got one more, we got to think it's him.
Hey guys, thanks for jumping back on Switch Hitting with Fitspits. It is mid-July and we are celebrating the Summer of Manny. You probably have heard that Manny Pacquiao will be coming out of retirement this weekend to fight for a world championship just a few weeks after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. What better person to discuss that than one of the best analysts in the game these days, Chris Algieri, who just happened to have fought Manny Pacquiao and went 12 rounds with him in 2014. Enjoy.
So I guess, first of all, I just want to congratulate you on, it seems like your analysis is everywhere. You and Paulie, I'm seeing you everywhere on ProBox and on Instagram, and you guys are talking fights and doing some things. Is this kind of a gig that you always saw yourself, getting involved in? Is this kind of cure the itch of wanting to come back, just being around it?
First of all, thank you. Thanks for the accolades. Not really. I didn't. This is a little different than I expected. Calling fights, yes. That's my literal favorite thing to do. And it does scratch that itch for me. I miss fighting dearly. I loved it. I was doing it longer than I haven't been doing it. In terms of kickboxing and boxing and just fighting. One-on-one competition has always been my favorite thing to do ever since I was a kid. But being ringside, calling fights, speaking to fighters, doing fighter meetings, fight week, being there, the energy. I absolutely love calling fights. The analysis, the media stuff, the podcasting, the interview, that's all kind of new to me. Or maybe I should say it's novel to me that I didn't necessarily expect that was going to be my path, but I'm thoroughly enjoying that part as well too.
Cool. Now the viewer chat thing that you're doing for the Pacquiao fights. I mean, where does that come from? Is that just a product of kind of being around, and they say, "Hey, Chris, you interested in doing this?"
Yeah, so PPV.com, I mean, it's an amazing streaming service that hosts these fights, and for everyone who is in the stream and is watching that particular event, has the opportunity to be in a live chat in real time to speak to people like myself, other writers, other boxing media members, and talk about the fights, talk about anything. I mean, it's grown tremendously these last half a dozen or so shows that we've done with PPV.com, and it's gotten really fun. We're getting a nice little community in there. We're seeing some familiar handles, and we get some fantastic questions. Man, boxing fans are the best fans in the world. They're knowledgeable. They've been around for a long time, and they truly love the sport. So interacting with them is phenomenal.
Yeah, agreed. The ones who know what they're looking at are a lot of fun to hang around with, and they come up
Yep.
with stuff. They challenge people who think they know what they're talking about, and they come up with angles that you may not have pondered before. Now, again, I mentioned coming back before. I mean, you haven't fought in 4 years, and you mentioned you've done it for a long time. Combination of boxing and kickboxing. Was there ever a moment you thought, "Hey, I'm going to come back and do this. I got one more good one left," or were you pretty convinced when it was over that it was over?
No, once I decided it was over, I've never thought back. I was on my way back. I had the Conor Ben fight, which obviously didn't go my way. Took a couple months off, and then was right back in the gym. Was actually in discussions about when the return would be, and honestly, I just kept getting hurt in camp. I kept, my knee, my ankle, my elbow, all the injuries that I've accrued over the decades of fighting just started to show up all at once. I was almost 38 years old in that last fight. And so, the 38-year-old body isn't the same as the 28-year-old body, that's for sure.
Amen,
So
brother. Amen.
yeah, so even just getting to a fight was becoming insurmountable, and I just didn't want to deal with the injuries and the layoffs and keep extending it anymore. I had a couple, parts of my career that kept me out of that were out of my control. One of which was a legal battle with my promoter, and then another one was the pandemic. So I lost about 4 good, solid prime years to that, which in guys that are fighting on my level, that's a lot of money and a lot of time. And I was trying to make it up on the back end the best I could. But Father Time, he's undefeated.
Yeah, for a reason, exactly. Now, when you hear guys decide to come back, whether it's for money or whether it's for the attention or whether they were out for a while for injury or whatever else, and you hear that XYZ guy is coming back, or in this case, Manny, what's your first reaction? Uh-oh, or is this like is it a case by case thing, or Or is it normal? I'm guessing it's normally maybe not great.
Yeah, so I kind of have two thoughts on this because when I was a fan, just a fan, before I was a fighter and I was watching fighters, I always think back to Roy Jones Jr. because he was my hero in the 90s. Everybody around my age, he was their hero. And I remember him fighting on past his prime, and I kept being like, "Oh man, come on, Roy! Like, what are you doing?" And I have to think that probably the generation before me watched that with Sugar Ray Leonard when he came back to fight Terry Norris, and then he fought Hector Camacho. You probably watched that and go, Sugar, come on. But now that I'm a fighter, and now that I've left the sport and I've gotten to where I've gotten, it's all on them, man. I'm not here to knock anybody. You're your own man. You're the master of your own destiny. If you choose to fight on, you feel like you got one more. Who the hell am I to say that you shouldn't, or to knock you in any way, shape, or form? So that has changed over the years as I've become a fighter myself and retired myself. When fighters decide to come back, hey man, that's on you. It's when you're a fighter, you always think you got one more. We all still think that. We all think that. And guess what? Some of us do. So, I'm certainly not going to knock a guy for trying.
Now, yeah, every now and then one guy says, he proves you wrong, and he is able to come back and do something like Ray did that against Hagler after 5 years. And I don't know that anybody thought he was winning that fight. So about this comeback and this fighter, I mean, Manny is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation Hall of Fame fighter. Did things that nobody's done before in weight classes that nobody ever pondered doing these things. You obviously have firsthand knowledge of this. At 46 years old, I mean, you're giving him permission. I hear that, but what do you think? Do you think, based on what you know of this game and what you know of him and what you've seen of him, even in the days right before he quit? I mean, he hasn't won a fight in 6 years. He hasn't fought in 4 years. He lost some time over COVID as well. The last fight he won, I was looking at the calendar before, was actually before COVID, which seems like another century from now. It was in 2019 that he last won when he beat Thurman. What is your initial reaction, other than saying, yeah, it's up to you to do this? How successful do you think he can be?
And I've been mulling that around quite a bit. And initially, my thoughts were negative. I'm like, he's fighting a 30-year-old champion. And, Barrios is no slouch, right? I mean, he's a world champion. He's a young guy. He's got good pop at welterweight. He drops most guys that he's fought. Yes, he struggled at the highest level when he fought Tank and when he fought Thurman. But he's young and he's ever improving. And listen, 30 and 46 is a lifetime in this sport. But part of the nostalgia in me comes out and says, hey, man, it's Manny, man. It's Manny. If anybody can do it, if anybody's got one more, it's that guy right there. And from firsthand experience, and not just being in the ring with him, because I've been working as a commentator for almost a decade now, I got to call Manny's fight against Lucas Matisse in Kuala Lumpur. And I got to interview him as a fighter. And now I'm a commentator. I'm meeting him, but I'm interviewing a former opponent and seeing, where he's at. And he was obviously a couple years removed from when we fought. He's just a warrior. It's his mentality. It's his lifestyle. I remember going into the fighter meeting, and so fighter meetings where fighters usually come to us, right? Not Manny Pacquiao. We go to Manny. So we went to his room. He went to his room to interview him, and we're sitting on his couch, myself and Todd Grisham, and Manny's eating dinner. It was the night before the weigh-in. He's having a big old steak. He had some rice, and then he was finishing up with eating a banana. And I'm looking at that meal, and I'm looking at him, and it was a bunch of years removed from when we fought. And I'm like, man, this guy, he's just old school. He is a classic throwback, cut from a different cloth warrior. His food was basic. The way he trains is pretty basic. And you're seeing him. He's doing those 6 mile runs in the morning. You see him with Freddie Roach at Wildcard Gym, throwing a million punches and the great footwork and the heavy bag work. And it just brings you back. And it's like, hey, listen, can this guy go back to the well one more time? And it makes you think. It makes you think. And once again, I mean, the legend of Manny Pacquiao, he is one of the few walking around living legends in our sport. So if anybody's got one more, we got to think it's him.
Yeah, you're right. If you're pulling any other welterweight from 10 years ago out, you're saying, I'm not so sure. But Manny and Floyd would probably be the two guys. They can do whatever. Until you show me they can't, they can. Now, when you were in the ring with him, granted, it's been a lifetime ago, but what was it that he possessed? Was it his speed? Was it his power? Was it his movement? Was it something else? Was it all those things that stood out, that made it most difficult to try to compete with that guy?
So the speed, the power, the footwork, I knew that was all coming. We kind of prepared for that, even though it's really difficult to prepare for Manny Pacquiao because no one fights like him. He is a one of one. For me, though, what I was really impressed by was his awareness. when you got 60 plus professional fights and you've been at the highest level for that long, of course, it's kind of silly to say that. It's like, oh, surprised you're so aware, but like, he's a rhythm fighter and he's really good at breaking that rhythm. He's kind of an offbeat rhythm fighter, which is a martial arts term, offbeat rhythm. And I'm a rhythm fighter. And I felt like every time I honed in and found my rhythm, like a Top Gun, when I got the crosshairs on him, he was aware of it. It was like it was recognized by him. I could actually see his mind almost like, oh, wait a second. And he would shift and he would adjust. And he would make an adjustment to his own rhythm. And it would throw me off. And I spent so much time chasing his rhythm, also recovering from being hurt because he would crack me with shots that I just didn't see and would stun me. So I spent so much of the time battling those two things, especially the rhythm thing, that by the time I was trying to get in the fight was over. And that was really impressive because I expected him to hit hard. I expected him to be fast. But in terms of his awareness in the ring and his adjustments, and that's the thing I say always separates champions from everybody else. Champions can adjust on the fly. If I couldn't adjust, I wouldn't be a world champion. If Manny couldn't adjust the way that he is, he wouldn't be a legend that he is. So the adjustments were really impressive.
Now, when guys fight to an advanced stage, come back for a while, or come back after a while, or whatever, or at least fight late in their 30s, even in their 40s, people say, okay, they're not as fast as they used to be. They don't move the way they used to. But if you're saying one of his main advantages was his awareness, what do you think happens to that? Does that go away? If he doesn't fight for 5 years and he's in the gym with Freddie for a couple of months, can he get that back, or is that once it's gone, or will he have it forever no matter what?
Can he? I believe yes. Will he? I don't know. We won't know that until we won't know this till the first round. I think the first round is going to be really telling. I think that if another thing about Manny that was so special was his first step. And people always say, he's the fastest, he was the fastest guy I fought. I was like, no, actually, the fastest guy hand speed wise was Amir Khan. But Manny's first step, that athleticism to fire off the line was so fast. And, he fires that lead power shot from the left hand, from the backhand, and he closes the distance so well for a shorter guy. It's that first step, man. It's so hard to get the timing on that. If he still has that, he's got a shot. And when you look at Manny Pacquiao, I remember before I said he's a one of one. He actually fundamentally does a lot of things wrong. He's got a ton of holes in his defense, his offense. He flies in at times, leading head first, which we saw in the Marquez counter knockout shot. But his elite footwork, his explosiveness, and that first step allowed him to get away with a lot of fundamental flaws. Now, if he slows down a little bit, do those flaws become glaring? Do they become able to be countered? We're going to know that early on too. If we see him starting reaching and getting square and not firing off that same kind of first step and movement, it's going to be a long, hard night for Manny Pacquiao fans.
Now, we were talking about Roy earlier. It seemed like that's kind of an apt description of him too. Like he was more athletic and dynamic than anybody in the 90s. But once that started to go away, that's when guys who couldn't have carried his lunch bag 10 years earlier were able to hang with him and even beat him. So, yeah, like you said, it'll be interesting to see if, in 3 minutes, we'll probably know the answer to that question. Talking about Barrios as a fighter, I mean, like you said, he's won world titles. He's fought elite guys, hasn't beat the super elite guys, but he's beaten pretty good guys. The fight he had in Dallas on the Paul Tyson card was a classic to watch. Do you think he's a guy who could have hung with Manny 10 years ago? If they had fought, if this Mario was fighting in 2015, is he a guy who could have been in the same ring with him or no?
I don't think so. I think he's tailor made for a prime Manny Pacquiao. Manny's really good at fighting taller fighters. Myself, Antonio Margarito, Oscar De La Hoya. He did really well against tall fighters. He also did really well against front foot heavy fighters. Oscar De La Hoya was a left hooker and a jabber. He was very heavy on that front foot at times, especially when he fought Manny. He was very flat foot in that fight. He had to come forward and try to land a left hook. Margarito was always a front foot fighter because he's a hooker and he wanted to bang with you. And Mario Barrios, to the degree, especially now at welterweight, now that he's gotten heavier, he is a little more front foot. He is heavy over that front hand. He is a left hooker and a jabber. He stays at mid range and he throws that jab and he thuds it. So all those characteristics are tailor made, which is the reason I think Manny's actually coming back. I think as people saw things in Mario that they were like, you know what?
That's why he's fighting this guy as opposed to somebody else.
Right. He's not fighting Brian Norman. He's not fighting Jaron Ennis. He was not coming back to fight Terrence Crawford. Those are styles that were just not going to play the right role. Mario Barrios, though, does. and especially because this is boxing, right? It's what have you done for me lately? His last couple fights, the Abel Ramos fight, like you said, it was a classic. But Abel Ramos is not a world class guy.
Sure.
He's not a world class level guy.
Yeah, you look at that fight and say, I can't beat this guy. Like,
Yeah. For that kind of fight, going to war and having a knockdown drag out match with that is like that's going to make you question about your titles. Also, the Fabian Maidana fight, he got hit a lot in that fight.
Right.
And Fabian Maidana was a guy who just got completely dominated and dropped by Rohan Polanco, who's got a dozen fights at this point. So you look at those last two fights, and I can see how the Pacquiao people went, wait a second, this might be a good guy, good time to come back. But before that, I was actually a big fan of Barrios. I thought he was an ever improving fighter. I really liked how he was developing through 135 to 140. Yes, like you said, he fell short versus Thurman and versus Gervonta, excuse me, Gervonta. But listen, those are A+ guys.
Sure. Everybody falls short against them, right?
Yeah. But the Aquador fight, very, very tough fight. I thought he gritted that out and threw some real talent in that fight. And the Ugas fight, which is really impressive because Ugas is hard to look good against. I thought he was punishing in that fight. He had good counters. He dropped them a few times. So I was impressed with that. But then his last two kind of really left you longing in terms of where he falls at the highest level at welterweight.
Now, it's funny you mentioned Margarito because that's the fight that I was thinking about as I thought about this one. Like, okay, Antonio was great. If he could get you isolated on the ropes or get you in the corner, he'd beat the hell out of you. But if you did not allow him to do that, you could make him look relatively ordinary is too strong a word, but you could beat him. Manny beat him. Cotto beat him the second time around. It's possible to be beaten by the right guy. So given these mixes of styles, when this fight happens, how do you expect it to look? I mean, I know it's kind of a crapshoot. We won't know until we see it. But knowing what you do know about these guys, what you've seen and how learned you are in this game, how do you think it's going to go? Somebody put a gun to your head and say, Chris, tell me what this looks like. What does it look like?
So right off the bat, if I had to say who's going to win the fight, I'd say Mario Barrios. I'm going with the younger guy. It's 46, 4.5 years off. It's too much time out of the ring at the age. I know he's Manny Pacquiao, but Mario Barrios is going to be the best version of himself. I don't think he's going to be the same guy that we saw against Abel Ramos. I don't think he's going to be the same guy that we saw against Fabian Maidana. I think he's going to be dialed in the best version of himself possible. And I think at this stage of both of their careers, the best version of Mario Barrios probably beats the guy who's going to show up in Manny Pacquiao's space. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Manny pulls it out, though, because of all the things I said earlier. He does have, listen, the power is the last thing to go. If he still has that first step, even at 80% of what he used to, and he starts tagging Mario Barrios in that first round with straight left hands, the way that Gervonta Davis was able to tag Mario Barrios, very similar body types, guys, explosive, power left hand. I mean, it's very possible. So if Manny has some of that left in the tank, don't be surprised if we get an upset. But I think it's really hard to go against Father Time, especially because I've dealt with him myself.
You know what a tough opponent he is. So I'll take this last part, I guess, two different ways. If things don't go well for Manny, if he's not able to resurrect, 10 years ago and beat this guy, is this I mean, people ask these questions all the time, but is this a legacy issue? I mean, at what point people still think of Roy Jones and they don't think of what happened in 2007. They remember 1993. Will that be a similar situation for this? People forget about Ugas. They'll forget about this one. They'll remember Marquez the first couple of times. They'll remember Tim Bradley a couple of times and all that. That's not going away, correct? In your opinion, at least.
I think Manny's in a win-win. Other than putting his safety on the line, I think
Sure.
with a loss here went to Mario Barrios. Listen, he's expected to lose to this younger guy who's a world champion. He jumped back into the ring. It's a big ask. But Manny's choosing to do it. He's up for it. If anybody is, it's him. But in terms of legacy, I don't think it has any effect if he is to lose the fight. If he wins, it's huge. It's a huge another addition into an unbelievably illustrious career. But in terms of a loss, yeah, I agree with you. Roy Jones Jr., we don't think about him losing, getting knocked out by Glenn Johnson or to Enzo Maccarelli. We don't think of.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, we don't think about Sugar Ray Leonard really losing, getting smashed by Hector Camacho. We don't think of those fights.
Or even Tyson and Kevin McBride. I mean, or Jake Paul.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's not they're not the same people at that time. So I think with Manny, like you said, I think we're going to cut off even the Ugas fight. But listen, that Keith Thurman win, that's tremendous. He did that at 40 years old against an undefeated star. Like, I mean, that's an A+ champion. And for Manny to do that 40, if he would have retired right there, it would have been like
fight, yeah.
the same thing with Roy Jones. Though, if Roy walked away after John Ruiz, even if he walked away after Antonio Tarver the first one,
the first time, yep.
you'd be like, okay, wow, what a career! You might be the best fighter who's ever lived. So yeah, Manny. But I don't think a loss really negatively affects his legacy.
Now let's take it the other way for the last one. He wins, he pulls off the upset, or he wins the fight, wins his belt, Hall of Famer to win a world championship after coming back. Is this a one and done? Does he use? I mean, he's not fighting Ennis, he's not fighting Brian Norman, he's not fighting Terrence Crawford. Does he give Floyd a call and say, "Hey, you want to try this again?" Or do you think that's what the end game is if this goes well, or is he going to walk away, take the belt, and say, "Thanks, guys. Now this time I really am done."
I'm putting all my money on him not walking away if he wins. He's gonna look for another big fight. Good thought about trying to lure Floyd back, but I think he might go the Gervonta Davis route. I think he might look for that fight. Smaller guy. I think it's a really fun fight. I think it's a fight that people would love to see. And I think it's actually a good fight. So I know that Manny's handlers are always kind of concerned about the size of the guys that he fights. They don't want them to be too big. Because he is up so many weight classes. So Gervonta kind of fits that bill. He's also a mega star and a big ticket seller. It just makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a good fight. It's still a good fight.
So this is, I guess, in theory, then, if they're sitting around thinking about it, we beat this guy, and that is the next one. I mean, he's got other options. It's not like, he's got nobody else who want to answer the call. If he calls you, are you going to come back and do it again? Or?
For Manny, I might. For Manny, I might.
You, right?
I mean, people ask you, what would it take to come back? I'm like, a lot of money, but Manny's different.
Now, if he were to fight Gervonta, I know I'm moving ahead a couple of jumps in the line here, but is that, when you look at that fight and you look at the Barrios fight, do you almost think Gervonta is a more winnable fight because of the size? But I mean, Gervonta is probably a better all-around fighter than Barrios is, but he's not as big. He's not as imposing. I mean, it's kind of an interesting. You're changing a couple dynamics there. How would you feel about that one if you're Team Pacquiao after this month?
He's not as busy either. Gervonta is one of the lowest output fighters in the world today. I think he's actually literally the lowest output champion in the world today. Highest knockout percentage, but lowest output. And he is a smaller guy coming up, and I know many people always talk about Manny being very small. He's not. He's a real welterweight. Like the guy fills in. Like he's not he's short for sure. But he's heavily muscled. He's obviously has the power. So he would have the size advantage for once. I think it's a good fight. I would, depending on how Manny looks. I know we're jumping the gun a lot because we haven't seen Manny. Did you watch?
It could be 3 minutes and we could change our conversation about this whole 3 minutes next weekend and we could forget all this. But
exactly. Did you see the exhibition he did with that kickboxer?
I did.
Yeah. So a lot of boxing people didn't. He looked horrible in that fight.
Right. Exactly.
He looked horrible in that fight. I mean, falling off balance, over his skis the whole time, getting rocked with shots to the head and to the body. Really, really bad showing. But I think that he didn't train a day for that. I think that he just showed up.
Yeah,
I feel.
Here we go.
Yeah, I feel like I've already seen him sharper in the gym getting ready for this fight than I saw on that fight, which is not completely out of the realm of possibility. So I think also by the time I see him at the weigh-in is going to be important because when he fought that exhibition, he looked fleshy. I've never seen Manny look like that.
No, he never does.
No, and he already looks leaner. If I see him on the scale next week and he's looking fit, that's going to be the first bell light that goes off. Like, okay, all right, he could be in this fight. And then in that first round, if I see that first step and I don't see him falling over his skis and I see him, calm and relaxed and firing the shot, I'm like, okay, all right, we're passing another checkpoint. We might have a fight on our hands. But if he shows up the way he did in that exhibition with that kickboxer, Mario's going to eat him alive.
Right. Now, if he is able to pull this off, and some people believe he will, and obviously you don't, and some people think it's ridiculous, and there's a lot of varying opinion that I've talked to people about. His legacy is already secure. We've already discussed that. But certain people have him at certain plateaus as far as where he ranks on the all-time list. If he's able to come back after not winning a fight in 6 years, to come back after going to the Hall of Fame and beat an active 30-year-old bigger, stronger in theory, world champion. Does that kick him up a bunch of notches? I mean, that's got to put him in pretty rarefied, even better air than he's already in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's already one of the best fighters of our generation. There's no question about that. Just like I said before, there has never been a Manny Pacquiao. There will never be a Manny Pacquiao. There is one Manny Pacquiao, and he is a truly special athlete. And with this kind of win, I mean, yes, it's another accolade. It's another feather in his cap. It's a great story too for a champion of his level to go out with a win that way. Because unfortunately, most of us go out with bad losses, and for Manny to go out with a win at that level, I mean, it's icing on the cake. It's that chapter, that the book that ties it all together, and certainly will elevate him in terms of his status. And I think he gets elevated with his status because listen, he's got a bunch of losses, and he's got some bad losses too. But he also fought everybody. The guy was a warrior. And boxing does a great thing with its champions, and they recognize that. And I don't think everybody gets that acknowledgement, but I think the true boxing heads will give credence to the guys who took risks, the guys who took those chances, the guys who stepped up. And Manny has consistently stepped up in really tough situations and overcome adversity.